Hey guys, it's Adam from LUCIDPIXUL and welcome back. Over the last little while, I and every other working professional artist and everything in between have been talking about AI art. But as I mentioned in my last video, my last one, which would have been my fourth or fifth so far, and there's going to be many more following, I made it clear to illustrate that this is a conversation, and conversations are two-sided, not just one-sided. Furthermore, being a conversation and being somebody who has filtered through thousands and thousands of comments over the last few weeks and months. My first video on AI art was over a year ago, I think. But before it became this mainstream thing that everybody's talking about, I can only address a limited number of things. So I encourage you not to react to what I don't say, but react to what I do say. And I want to clarify, I want to use this opportunity not only to address your concerns, but also to clarify my perspective. I don't think you might understand, based off a lot of the comments that I read, that you are aware of how much I know already and how much I've been studying on the subject, not only with regards to how it affects us as artists and all the legal and ethical ramifications that tie around art, in particular visual arts, but the world in general, programming, data collection, fashion, music, you name it. It's impacting everybody. And in fact, arguably, it's impacting art. I think that as one of my programmer friends who actually was a programmer, who's also an artist, he actually helped develop AI art, said, if anybody's going to lose their jobs first, it's going to be programmers, not artists. And this is coming from somebody who literally helped develop AI art in that regard. So do be aware that this is a very, very complex issue. I'm addressing some topics, but understand that I'm on your team. I'm affected by this just as much as you are, if not more, because I do have my livelihood wrapped around this thing. So I want you to consider what I'm saying as adding ingredients to a big recipe that is growing extremely fast, and you're adding your thoughts and feelings to that. But if you're just going to insult my recipe because you think I'm wrong, or you think that my question or my thoughts and feelings at the time are incomplete or misleading, then that serves no purpose but to just tell me that I'm wrong and shut up, which I think would be a great disservice. I think that what I'm offering you here is a conversation. I'm keeping the dialogue open. I'm making sure that we're staying informed, that we're bouncing these thoughts and feelings and opinions and facts back and forth between us. It's not, my word is not law, and neither is yours. Okay? So we're going to start with a first very important comment from somebody who's in a very important position, a unique and important position. Zinka777, who wrote a couple of weeks ago, I'm 34, so I'm definitely not a kid. I'm both a lawyer and an artist, and I'm honestly mortified by the fact that some industry giants take such a light-hearted approach to this whole AI thing. So actually, although this isn't this isn't what the entire comment is about, I just want to address that first comment. I'm not a kid. What I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, 2 or 3 videos ago, was that AI, the threat of AI, can feel more threatening to an artist who hasn't yet established themselves. And what I had noticed, because the video was I was addressing directly emails I had received from people who are talking about hurting themselves and talking about the depression and the anxiety that AI was causing. That's what that video was about. It wasn't about my opinions of AI in general. It was about helping people to stay safe, really. That I noticed that the majority of the people that I had been receiving emails and comments that were particularly emotionally distressing and concerning were from younger artists that were in their early 20s to 30s. This isn't that kind of dramatic and emotional response is less common in older people. So for Zinka777 saying I'm 34, it's establishing the fact that yes, this affects me too, but I'm not a kid, so your comment about kids doesn't apply. That wasn't my point. My point was younger people are more susceptible to taking drastic measures, and I was trying to protect them from doing anything regrettable. But I understand that comment. Now, going on, Zinka says, I remember your video with Hardy Fowler on the same topic, and I addressed some of the problems in the comments under that video also. Since then, Hardy has taken a very serious turn on the topic of AI, which I'm glad about because we can't fight this fight alone. To address that, I spoke to Hardy directly, and I mentioned that because I said, if I'm very curious to know how your opinions have changed, because I'm trying to inform myself on this as well. And he wrote me back, and I'm not going to speak for him, but he said, my opinion hasn't changed that much after rewatching that video again, although we will be in contact and we will be discussing this further moving forward. So that said, that's Hardy's take on it, but take that as you will. But I very much listened to him, and if anything encourages him to think in one way or another, I am very influenced by that because I'm very influenced by his opinion. He's a person whose opinion I hold in very high regard, along with several other people I'm going to be mentioning today, whom I stand behind and mirror their same opinions as well. And my opinion is going to change over time too. Expect that. Telling people who will soon lose their jobs or potential jobs to just adapt to art theft is not helpful. All right. Scroll through my timeline. I have a video where I talk about, which is where the line must be drawn. Okay, that's the name of the title, and I was addressing AI art directly when it was really starting to kick off, and I made it extremely clear: art theft is wrong. Period. There's nothing ethical or legal about art theft. In fact, that was the whole foundation of that video. I was saying, if you're using it as a referencing tool, if you're learning it as a learning tool, great. But if you are taking somebody else's art, stealing somebody else's hard work style, and then just churning it out convincingly and calling it your own and making a profit off of that, that's called plagiarism. And that's been illegal for many, many years. I do not stand behind art theft, nor have I ever mentioned at any point in time that I stand behind using hard-earned, well-established artistic styles by professionals who spent their entire life developing something, using that to very quickly and efficiently build an AI model and create art that is in the likeness of or is benefiting from the hard work of other artists must be stopped. And that is my very firm stance on that. I do not agree with if you just went in and dialed in, Hardy Fowler's work or my work or Tyler Edlin's work or Ahmed Al-Douri's work or Sargent's or Repin's work or any of these, Frazetta's work, and you trained AI on that, that's unethical and it's illegal. You are stealing that's like stealing somebody else's music and calling it your own. It's illegal, and I don't stand behind that. And I very much stand behind any lawyers or artists who are advocating to fight this. I made a comment on Mark Brunet's video recently, where he was talking about a law that was being put into place to safeguard artists from having their art used to train AI art programs. And I was elated. I was overjoyed to hear that these steps are being taken. I am 100% standing behind Carla Ortiz and her team, who have become very public. I just watched an episode of Cold Fusion where she's mentioned as well. I stand behind her 1000%. I am on her. I am donning her colors, and I am standing behind her in the fight to fight this. To summarize, if you really want to know how I feel, at least what I'm aware of, and how I feel about this whole AI art thing, I feel that nobody to date has summarized a very eloquent and big picture model of the potential implications and the potential future threats and existing threats of AI than Steven Zapata's video, which I've watched at least 4 or 5 times, because it's long-winded and it's very, very rich with information. And I think every freaking point he mentioned is extremely informative and a foundation for anybody who wants to see the big picture. I am very much aware of that. I'm very much aware of everything that he's talking about, and then some. And I stand word for word behind what Steven Zapata was talking about. Not only that, but the potential solutions, the proposals that could implicate artists into the development of AI in an ethical way that doesn't strip them of their livelihood, such as paying an artist rights to be able to use their art to train a model, I think is quite brilliant. And I don't see why they couldn't do that at all. And I am very much aware of the fact that although in the music industry Stable Diffusion also developed another app which deals more with the music production side of things, making it a very strong point of illustrating that they did not use unethical or copywritten material, because the music industry has a lot more money to fight legally. And the double standard that Steven Zapata had mentioned with regards to how that applies to artists, how they're not, it's a very hypocritical stance to take and a very contradictory stance to take, because they know that visual artists don't necessarily have the same budgets that the music industry has. Watch his video if you want to know how I feel. I love your videos and I appreciate your work on this channel more than I can say. I'm one of those who drop everything and hit play as you post. But I feel you're not hearing everything people are trying to address in these comments. I hear everything. I read every one. Look at the comments. I've tried to respond to as many of them fully as possible. I'm very much aware. I compare my feelings about this and how I'm addressing it exactly the same way it felt like to be a smoker for 20 years, smoking cigarettes for 20 years, which I did. I quit almost a decade ago, so high five to me. But every single time I would be walking down the street and some old woman who would walk by me, she goes, "You know, those things cause cancer. You're going to die. It's bad for your health." Yeah, fuck you. I already know that. Thank you for telling me something I don't know. I have to make that decision up for myself. And that directly relates to another comment that I read by somebody else who said, Adam just sits on the fence. His attitude changes every 2 seconds. That's the wrong analogy. I'm not standing on a fence. I'm standing on the precipice, on the edge of a battlefield, assessing the situation. I am not running into battle with both guns blazing, screaming obscenities to try to scare off the enemy, because that makes me no more than a bullet sponge. I'm doing it the smart way. I'm standing back. I'm taking everything in. I'm trying to understand who my opponents are and how this is affecting other people. I am taking a strategic stance here. I'm not sitting on the fence. Standing on the fence means I'm unwilling to make a decision, or that I'm flip-flopping. I'm not flip-flopping. My opinion has been consistent since my first video I've ever posted about this. But I'm uninformed. I am trying to keep up with the information. I am ignorant to a lot going out there, legally, ethically, and personally, and socially. So I'm not just jumping into the field and blurting any shit out, because I am accountable for the words that I say. And if I come out in a very aggressive and emphatic and combative attitude, I've got up to 200,000 people seeing that. And they are being influenced by what I'm saying. And I would never turn to people I love, including you, and say, fight! Fight, 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 fight! Why? Because I'm basically using you as a meat shield for my opinion. And I would much rather put myself in front of the bullet than put you in front of it. So understand, my stance is not one of ignorance, it's one of defensiveness in your best interest. Next comment is by Mayron Dirty Renan 4609. I forget even trying to get that right. Okay. Adapting to AI is a very short-term solution. AI will become so good, it only takes an art director and a laptop. We're all coping right now, and I sense you're also struggling with this. Your comparison to your own struggles from 2D to 3D is flawed, as the AI can't really be compared to anything. It's not artist dependent like 3D or photography. It's so much bigger than the art world. It's going to take over so much. It's horrifying. Edit. Please prove me wrong. I hate AI so much, and I love your optimism. Well, thank you. I appreciate your optimism. Okay, well, let me address that very last comment first. Optimism. I don't regard my approach as being optimistic. I'm regarding it as not attacking without being completely aware of what I'm attacking. I know from life experience, not just from professional experience, that running in aggressively and being in a constant state of battle mode creates fatigue. Being around and being exposed to people who are very, very combative my entire life, who are always in fight and defense mode, always ready to be screwed over by somebody, always ready to fight the injustices of whatever shit they were dealing with in their life, is exhausting. And I have discovered through experience in my life to be informed, to be aware, to be proactive, to be adaptable, and I'll explain what I mean by adaptable in a sec, because a lot of people are misinterpreting what that means, which I already explained in my last video, but a lot of people aren't getting the hint. And when and if I'm going to strike, I'm going to do so in a very targeted, well-informed, well-supported, and effective way. I'm not just going to go in and scream with my picket signs outside town hall and call them all a bunch of bad names. I'm going to, like a sniper, see what's going on, see what the ramifications are for my actions, and make a move from there. And in the meantime, when there are smarter, more capable, more able people out there that are already making steps to solve this problem, I support them. It's not optimism. It's behaving in a way that always contributes to improvement, rather than just complaining about what's wrong, because that drags me down, it drags you down and fills you with a sense of hopelessness, and there's nothing to show for it. All I'm doing is using you as my personal diary so I can vent that life sucks. And that's not the position that I take. I will never take that position. I'm here to make things better, not worse. And I will support those who are making it actively better, or I will actively make things better through the choices that I make, through what I choose to talk about. And if that's interpreted as optimism, then thank you. Now, adapting to AI. Let me talk about adapting. A lot of people are sitting there thinking that I'm saying just give in to AI. It's here. You've already lost the fight. Do or die. This is the new world. Deal with it. That's not what I mean. I think that would be devastating. I stand for humanity. I stand for the human experience. The whole reason why I've made teaching my career is because I love working with people. First and foremost, I have people's best interest in mind. I have zero sympathy or empathy for a computer program, particularly one that is designed to make my very, very loved career of art obsolete. Why in the world would I ever support something like that? I don't want you to adapt. But by saying adapting, I'm not saying adapt to the reality that it's game over. I'm saying be proactive. Whatever gesture you take, moving forward, whatever you do, moving forward, and this requires you to get a hands-on experience. Keep your enemies closer. Start experimenting with AI art. See what it's producing. Have a physical connection to what is happening. Be emotionally aware of what's happening. Try it. Test it out. Play with it. And you will be able to sense from a personal level, as an artist, as a creator, as somebody who's dedicated yourself to this, if any red flags go off. I'll give you an example. My original experiment was with Midjourney. And I've been using that mostly lately, but I've also been testing out Stable Diffusion as well. And there's also dall-e and all that kind of stuff. I spoke about dall-e last year when the whole thing was starting to become a subject. And I tried to, I don't know if I mentioned this in my last video, I tried to do a prompt for Garfield and it wouldn't give me Garfield. It only gave me fat cats. That's all. And I tried again and it refused to give me anything that looked anything remotely close to Garfield. The colors were different, the designs were different and everything. And I thought to myself, I like that, because what it's doing is it's giving me access to professional looking designs without actually ripping anybody off. Although the argument to that is, well, then where did it come from, Adam? Because it's got to be ripping somebody off. Yes, it does. And that's where the legal side of things comes. If it becomes blatantly obvious that a certain artist or artists have been ripped off, then that's a legal matter. That needs to be stopped. We need to put safeguards in place, like the one Mark Brunet was talking about in his video. Again, go check it out on his channel. That protects somebody from just going in, doing Adam Duff style art painting and then slapping their name on it and calling it a day. That is theft. So that is not adapting. That's just handing over your children to the first person who asks them for it without anything to show for that. No, this is my livelihood. This is my life. This is my life's achievement. You're not allowed to take it from me. But if you can expose me to an artistic standard that is basically functioning as an extremely advanced shortcut to art reference, which is what I'm using in this video. You can see I've had Midjourney images up as references online to help me to better inform my drawing. That is absolutely no different and no less humanitarian than I would be going online and just looking up a bunch of random images on Pinterest. And I'm not paying attention to the half of the names I'm looking at either, because I'm just looking for shapes and textures and designs. And I'm trying to be influenced by the standards and by the qualities of other artists, and I'm compiling that together to create something original, something that is through my own voice, my own interpretation. And that's no different from what I'm doing right now in this video. Okay? That said, the other thing that people were butthurt about is that I'm comparing 2D to 3D. And I think I'm going to drop that analogy because I was using that as a reference to a specific facet of how it impacted me as an artist. I'm not comparing how 3D art impacted my career and the complexity and the involvement of 3D art in the artistic pipeline as is AI art in its current state. I'm saying in its current state because if we advocate against copyright laws, we can prevent that really bad thing from happening. We're in the fight right now with this. What I was referring to was how it made skills that I had spent my entire life up until that point practicing and training, and made those skills obsolete. How to do smooth frame by frame, shooting on ones or shooting on twos, how to do smooth frame by frame animation, my life's aspiration, something I trained every single day for through elementary and high school and college and university, to find out that I can just get all those in-betweens and breakdowns done automatically with super realistic lighting, was at the time a complete heartbreak that made me feel like my job, my skills were obsolete and I had to figure out a different career path. Does that mean that AI and 3D are the same thing? No. One is 3D is an evolved and advanced tool used for creating more realistic animation, but a human being needs to be behind the artistic choices, the animation choices, the body language, the in-betweens and all of the little nuances of performances, the millions of frames that going into making a very, very precise, very impactful performance is all done by the human. 3D is just generating the imagery and the lighting and the effects and the volume consistencies and the smoothness between frames. It's taking care of that aspect of it. In which case, for people who like 3D and like the look, they could choose that path. In my case, I did it for a while. It wasn't my bag. I never decided to become a 3D artist forever. And I went back to 2D and I became an illustrator. That was a career choice. AI risks making that whole artistic career pointless, because for people who don't have any artistic standards, who don't care about that, quote, 20% creativity that an artist applies to the end of the thing. Watch my last video if you want to know what I mean by the 80-20 rule. I was quoting Hardy Fowler there. For people who don't care, they will, and they just want cost-effective, professional-looking artwork, to somebody like that, and if they get away with it, and if they're allowed to use AI art that way, well, don't quit your day job, because there's a very good chance that, yes, moving forward, that might impact us. While we're on the topic, let me mention something else that's been brought up a few times by different people. And Zinka777 had written this as well, kind of implied this in their comment as well. Zinka wrote that he or she was very upset by hearing an industry giant feeling such a way. Perhaps I'm interpreting that as regarding me as an industry giant. That's a label. That's a label, which I haven't given myself. And then a lot of other comments saying, oh, it's very easy for Adam, who's got an established school and he's booked solid for several years with his school and he's got a YouTube channel and blah, 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 blah. This doesn't impact him. It's easy for him to be so insensitive to how this impacts somebody who's trying to make a career out of himself. Somebody who's younger, somebody who's trying to establish themselves and hasn't made it yet. I want you to stop and think about that comment for 2 seconds. Not because I'm trying to defend myself. I don't need to defend myself. I know how this impacts my life. Whether you believe it's impacting me or not is irrelevant, because your opinion, AI doesn't give a shit about your opinion or mine. This is something non-human. But I want you to think about this next time you comment on some YouTubers or some professional, well-established artists' beliefs, thoughts, and beliefs. I'm a 47-year-old man with 3 kids and a home, and I'm responsible for, at this particular point, making sure that I can live up to the expectations of students for at least the next, up until at least 2027 at this point. And my entire life, my career, my life achievement, or one of my major life achievements, is finally, through great struggle and through great difficulty. If you don't know about that, watch the other 7,000 videos I've posted on it if you want to know anything about my past and my struggles with finances and careers. My whole channel is based off of the difficulties that got me to where I am right now. This is the first time in my life I'm feeling any kind of real stability and, quote, success. And it's ironic that I'm being compared to people who are these born wealthy folks. When I was a guy who was in his 20s and 30s, going into the ashtray in the backyard in minus 30-degree weather to find a cigarette butt so I could just get a couple of hits off of a cigarette, which tastes like shit, makes you feel sick, because I didn't have 25 cents to go to the frickin' corner store and buy myself a single. And because I'm in this position now, there's people saying, I've got this pile of gold to rest my head on, so I don't need to come down from on high to worry about the commoners because I'm all set. I'm not all set. And this risks destroying everything that I've ever worked for. My school, my YouTube channel, everything. I have an entire life's achievement to lose. And if you're at the beginning of your career, you're at the other end of how this can impact you. You're at the side, we're just at different ends of being impacted, but this impacts us both equally. Have some empathy for people out there that have made a name for themselves. Why is Carla Ortiz leading the charge, fighting this legal battle? Why is she filing a class action lawsuit to protect the rights of artists? Is it because this doesn't impact her? No, it's because it does. It's because she's got such a huge body of work that is so recognizable online. She's a very easy target for training an AI software, isn't it? There's a lot of work out there. The more work you have out there, the easier it is for AI to rip you off more convincingly. I'm sure that if it let it, if I wanted to do a prompt for Frank Frazetta style drawing about blah, 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 it would probably do a much better job than if I put in Adam Duff doing blah, 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 because I don't have nearly the same body of work that Frazetta has. So he's a better target, not a worse target. And I don't give a shit how long you've been on this planet, money runs out. I'm not sitting here with a bag of gold next to me. If tomorrow AI art made my job obsolete, I would immediately be impacted by this. Immediately. And it would have a horribly devastating impact on my life. So the fact that I'm behaving this way and I'm acting this way is because I have to have a plan B ready. I have to be adaptable to the inevitability, the possible inevitability that my job would become completely obsolete. That's what I meant by adaptable. I didn't mean, deal with it, adapt, become an AI programmer. But if and when you do feel that your career is being threatened, then you have to become aware and ready for that. Or what's the alternative? Be broke, starve, your children starve, lose your livelihood. Weigh your options, choose. What I'm not going to do as well is be that combative person who just goes in and fights. If I'm trying to win this battle, if you call it a battle, if I'm trying to win this battle through brute force, who has more money and more power and more capability? Well, throw in the glove now, because you've already lost. You and me, we've already lost this battle. If this is about brute force, you're outranked by around 1,000-fold. Give up. You're going to have to be much smarter than that. You're going to have to creatively find a way to be able to adapt around this. And like they say, that which does not grow dies. That's your choice. Next comment from my older video is by Asmodaster1. I was thinking Asmodan here. Asmongold. No, Asmodaster1. Geez, where do you come up with these names, guys? He's not worried because he already made bank. Again, this is exactly what I was talking about. It is us, middling artists, newbies and wannabes, who have to worry. It is us who the AI will replace and F over. I spent 10 years of my life to build a somewhat decent career as an illustrator, 10 years of work, 10 years of putting up with bottom of the barrel clients. And it can be and will be over in months, probably just because Elon Musk wanted to play billionaire futurist again. Thank you, Elon. Well, for starters, Elon is apparently advocating against it. So I wouldn't throw him in the flame because he might be one of the best people to have on our team right now. Again, if I'm wrong about that, don't crucify me. I don't follow Elon that closely. But I'm not going to address the whole thing that I've made bank. I've already made it clear that I haven't, and that I would immediately feel the financial repercussions and everything that I've built my life around. And in my particular case, it's not a 10 years worth of work. It's almost 50 years of work that would be flushed down the toilet. Or at least that's what the dramatic, emphatic artist in me that's how I would write it. But that's not to say in the same breath that Asmodaster's thoughts and feelings have less value. No, because it's equally devastating at both ends of this career. It's devastating to me because my life's work is being flushed down the toilet, and it's devastating to Asmodaster because this is potentially hamstringing the ability to build a career. So that dream, that aspiration is already there. And now a big stick has been stuck in their spokes. And that is a horrifying thought. And to that I say, yeah, that's a possibility. It's a possibility. Here we are. How do we, number one, do our best to prevent this from happening? Legally, ethically, not through brute force emotion. Brute force emotion, don't waste your time. You can bitch and complain and call me all the names you want. It's not going to make a damn bit of difference. AI does not give a shit what either one of us think. Remember that. It's a program. It's not sentient. Yet. That's another conversation. But it doesn't care what you think. It is soulless, it is heartless, and it is all-consuming, and it does pose a threat. What do you do about that? What do you do about that? Well, if all of your eggs are in one basket, in that basket, some bully comes over and knocks that basket over, what are you going to do? Die? Give up? You cannot be emotionally invested in the life of somebody else who's already given up. I remember watching one of my favorite acting for animation teachers, Ed Hooks, who I've had the pleasure of meeting and working with on a couple of different occasions, talks about how to keep a story alive, how to keep a movie plot alive. And he says, you can only maintain an audience's care and attention through empathy, not sympathy. You have to give, your audience should always be rooting for the success of the hero of the film. And there's a point at the climax of a film where, like if you think of Lord of the Rings and Mordor, and Frodo's lying down on the ground and he's completely, as they say in Australia, knackered, he's completely knackered. I think it's an Australian comment. Now all the Brits are going to get pissed off at me. Yeah, I think it's British. But completely exhausted and wasted, and there's nothing left of him. The power of the ring has gotten him, and he's lying there on the ground, and he says, I can't do it anymore, Sam. I give up. I can't do it. And what happens is Samwise Gamgee, with tears in his face, with tears streaking down and dirt streaking down his face, looks at him with all the conviction and says, then I'll do it for you, Frodo. And he lifts him up over his shoulder and he climbs him up the mountain. Tolkien walked you to the precipice of giving up without giving up. At a point of absolute hopelessness, when Frodo wasn't capable of doing it, Sam did it for him. But that hope is not giving up. What would happen in that story if Sam said, yeah, screw this, and he laid down next to Frodo and they just sat there and then the credits rolled? It would be game over. Story's over. Your story's not over here. Don't throw in the towel and give up. Don't say, screw this, life is over. Hey, buddy, if you're going to quit that fast, you were never meant to be this in the first place. It was never meant to be in the first place. It means it didn't matter enough to you. And the only reason why I'm sitting here making this video after video after video is because I'm keeping this conversation going. We're working this out together until we figure shit out. And we're going to do so organically. We're going to team up. I want to bring people onto my channel whose voices are far more eloquent and far better researched than me. I want to bring people who are advocating for it. I want to bring people who are speaking on behalf of the subject. I want to get people who have positive and negative and everything in between opinions, so I can be a hub, like everybody else's YouTube channel, being hubs for conversation. Because the last fucking thing in the world I'm ever going to give up on is hope. And the minute that hope is taken from me, I've already got something else to glue my hope to. But I'm not going to sit here and give up. And I don't encourage you to do the same thing either. Now, on the newer comments, yes, this video is lengthy because there's a lot of opinions out there. Let me see. Jake Parker. Hello, Jake Parker. Jake Parker 44. This is the Jake Parker. Great video, Adam. Here's my current experience in AI. I'm now seeing AI being used in the workflow of the client work I'm doing. The art director usually has an AI artist, quote unquote, on the team working with him. The AD, the artistic director, tells him what he needs. And the AI guy messes around in Midjourney and other AI tools and generates a bunch of ideas. just like I'm doing right now with these Dark Souls Bloodborne references for this piece, just to give me some visual cues. Then they send those ideas to me as a mood board or a reference board, and how I use that to make something really dialed in and usable for the production. The AI just isn't in a place yet, maybe never, that you can use for the final production work. That's what I'm finding too. It can't recreate what's in my head. That's just, I can't see that being a possibility unless it becomes clairvoyant. And then that's where Elon Musk's brain chip comes into the mix. Or if you're using existing artwork as a prompt, in which case it's your artwork and you're building off of what you've already done. So you're still already the launch pad for that artistic piece. There's just too much massaging that needs to be done to get what you need for certain productions. 100% agree with that. And that's from personal experience. And I recommend you playing around with these apps too, not to assimilate yourself to it, just to kind of get an idea on what it actually contributes artistically at this particular point. In a handful of cases, I've leaned on Midjourney to just generate a specific background for me. 1800s laboratory, large windows, steampunk, 2-point perspective. And then I'll draw over it in my own style and put my characters on top. It's nice and quick when you're under a deadline for a client. Okay. Thank you, Jake Parker. I like how Jake is already kind of becoming a part of the conversation of taking ownership of this software in a creative and ethical way. And notice that Jake, being an artist, being a professional artist himself, he is already himself very sensitive to copyright. He already has that empathy for the human being behind the artwork, and is not expressing in this how he feels like, shit, my job is obsolete. When in playing around on Midjourney as a referencing board, as I do with Pinterest as well, and I need them both. I need Pinterest for a very curated, algorithmically accurate reference board of diversity that applies to what I do. And Midjourney is a far more targeted, this is what the image is about. Can you help me to feed images, colors, textures, shapes, etc. that I can use to enhance the information, the design process of what I'm doing? I felt 0% like I was stepping on anybody's toes, except for maybe the commercial art of Dark Souls, which I already look up, which is already all over Pinterest. And I didn't think it was any less ethical to look at Pinterest as I did look at Midjourney. It's just Midjourney is giving me more information based off of what I want. I don't have to go and piecemeal it from 100 different references. I can compile a lot more information to a single point of reference, which to me is something very valuable. And it's helping me to get better at my own original work. It's helping to amplify my voice more efficiently, not the opposite. Now, again, to reiterate, because this needs to be clarified, would I go on AI and say, generate a Dark Souls looking image in Carla Ortiz's style? No. Would I go on Midjourney and say, give me a Dark Souls looking image done in Anthony Jones's style or Bobby Chu's style? No, because that's theft. Because that's basically getting Bobby Chu to paint it for me, but I'm not paying him for it. You get what I'm saying? That's where the line gets crossed. But Dark Souls is a commercial art. It's all over the freaking internet. It is a genre. It is a style. The same way Blizzard art or Riot Games art or League of Legends art, it's recognizable. It's like looking up manga art. It's like looking up anime. Or it's looking up Miyazaki's work. Look at how many of you out there are heavily influenced by Miyazaki's work, by anime. Jesus, I'm a teacher. 75% of my students have anime portfolios. Does that make them all thieves? Even though they're drawing everything in the likeness of pretty much the same anime characters, they all grew up on the same shit, and a lot of these portfolios look alike? No, it's not theft. It's a style. It's a genre. I'm referencing a style. I'm not referencing an artist, an individual who's an illustrator who has a very unique brand. I'm an illustrator. My brand is unique. My rendering, my style, my vision, my execution is unique to me. If somebody goes in and says Adam Duff Art, you're ripping me off. Develop your own voice. Artist is about integrity. It's about, quote, know thyself, the thing that I have in my arm. It's not know Carla Ortiz. I don't have that written on my arm. I have know myself on my arm. And that's what I'm advocating for. That's where that line gets crossed. Okay. Next. Chicken nicks. My name is Victor. With due respect. You know that, yeah. With due respect. Go F yourself, sir. No, that's not what he wrote. With due respect. But I would like to point out, Adam, is that you have a big name. I write it very big on my page. This is true. It's huge. You have experience working in pre-AI industry for a really long time, and you've established a well-balanced business and income where you have no fear of AI. Oh, yes, I do, because AI will take that business away from me when nobody wants to sign up for my school anymore because they all give up. Congrats on that, but hear me out. Since you might live in a specific information bubble, as we all are, young and new artists have no chance standing against AI. Well, that's giving up, isn't it? And I don't agree with that. Since industry mostly do not care about artists' sound and style, of which you speak a lot. The industry mostly cares about how much cash is being spent on the artist and the pace at which art gives results. Agreed. It is far more efficient. It is far more successful at generating professional looking art, and there is a risk there that we need to be very, very conscious of, right? Also, not all artists crave for a big success story, loud voice or publicly, since some of them are satisfied with results or other degrees of shapes. Someone finds happiness in drawing and just being paid enough for it, making a big name. Okay. I mentioned this in the last video as well. I have to, as a teacher and a professional, make a distinction between establishing a name for yourself and putting in the work. Let's make a distinction between this, okay? I'll give you an example. A good friend of mine and my first student of all time, Antonio Stipertz, who signed up for my mentorship back in 2015, within a year, which is not flattering to any one of us, myself included, was working professionally. Why? How did he go, as he's been quoted, from zero to hero in 1 year? And I mean literally, he started from scratch, bare bones, never had any training in art. He was very beginner when he started, and within a year he was kicking ass. And now I binge off of his videos and learn from him every single day. He's fantastic. Why? Because he did the fucking work. He worked his ass off. He learned the principles. When I sat down with him, we were learning about fundamentals and learning about lighting and learning about composition and learning about all these different things. He paid attention to every goddamn word that came out of my mouth. He was locked in on every single point, and he came back the next week and applied everything. To quote Anthony Jones was asked the question once, what is a good indicator of a student who you know is going to do well? And he said, he actually does what I tell him to do. It's like a lot of people go, oh, gee, thanks, teacher. And then they go away and they do something else and they completely ignore it. You have to physically do it. And Antonio is he's testament to the fact that he put the hard work in. He went from, in 1 year, going from somebody who had zero skill or little to no skill to being a teacher and running his own business and having ArtWad and setting a platform and being innovative in the industry. There's nothing stopping you from doing that too. Are you saying, "Oh, I'll never make a name for myself. I suck. It's you. You can stand you can stand from your golden temple, like Cersei up on the top of her temple, looking down at the city being bombed by dragons, and think that you're immune from pain." Is that it? Because once that voice is applied, whether you use AI or whether you use Pinterest or Google to practice those skills and start to develop a name for yourself, you'll start to immediately feel like you're no longer a part of that demographic that is being destroyed, that is having their potential destroyed. If you've only been in the field for 5 years, if you're brand new to this and you've barely got any practice, of course you're going to feel hopeless. For the same reason I'll feel hopeless if I walk into an AI programming department and say, AI is taking over my job. Buddy, you never even fucking did your homework. Do your homework first, learn the skills, learn the trade first, and then talk. But if you haven't even done the work yet, if you're thinking that your career is just handed to you, well, good luck with that. You're game over, give up. Okay? Now that said, once you do establish that name for yourself, once you have gotten over that hump and you've gotten those skills together, yes, and I know that you're in the comments right now just completely flaming because I just said what I did, but it's the fucking truth, so deal with it. Learn, practice. That's your job. Everybody's got to earn their place. Once you do, once you have worked your ass off, practiced those fundamentals, gone to different schools, invested your time, your money, your energy, your life, you've made sacrifices, you've lost relationships because your girlfriend or boyfriend got fed up waiting for you to make a name for yourself. And why are you even bothering? Because AI is out there, and you said, fuck all of you, I'm going to do it my own way. And you make a name for yourself, and 10 years pass, 20 years pass, 30 years pass. You're working your ass off. You overcome obstacles in the career that make everything just fucking belly up. And then you got to reinvent yourself and rebrand yourself and make a career change. And you're still broke, and you got bill collectors chasing after you. And then your bank account gets frozen, and you can't buy cigarettes, and you can't buy yourself anything nice, and your power gets cut off in the middle of winter, and you're freezing your ass off, and your children have left you, and all that kind of shit. And then you finally fucking make a name for yourself, and you finally get that gig, and you get a salary, and you slowly start to chip away at those bills, and you can buy yourself some food, and you can finally buy that nice drawing tablet you wanted. You finally got it all. And then you start a YouTube channel. And then you start a school. And you make a name for yourself. Within 365 days of you making a name for yourself, people start accusing you of being Elon Musk on top of that castle who has no empathy for the commoner. Because you're rich and established, and this won't affect you. And you shouldn't be listened to because you don't represent the common denominator. You don't represent society because you're in a different echelon of humanity. Why don't you try to digest that one for a second? Why don't you stop and think about that for a second? You spent your entire life eating crow to reach a certain point, and then you dedicate your YouTube channel to helping other people reach that point because you can empathize with what they're going through because you've fucking been there 1,000,000 times over. And then people tell you you're a fraud and that you're invalid because you've made a name for yourself. So I think the biggest curse ahead of you for anybody making a comment like that, the biggest curse you have standing in front of you is, for fuck's sakes, don't you dare succeed. Don't you dare succeed. Because if you do, then you're no longer a part of the club. You're out. Next comment. Petar Peczewski. I'm not sure if that's Polish. I watched the whole thing, and it felt you were addressing how AI impacts our relationship with our own art. I like that you tried to give reassurance on that note, but I think there's a much bigger problem. Our relationship with art at work is no doubt going to change. There's not going to be much sense of ownership if all you're doing is just filling in the cracks and cleaning up generated images. I don't think I'd want to do that. That sounds very depressing. You'll have that's kind of the way I feel about matte painting and stuff. You're just taking images and then just kind of tweaking it to make it look believable. I've never been a fan of matte painting, although I think it's a great career to have if that's what you're into. You'll have quicker turnarounds and more efficient production, but you'll have less motivated artists because you're taking away the process. I very much agree. I love the process. No artist wants to be the 20%. I disagree with that. I think maybe because you're interpreting the 20% as just being that little bit at the end, that little me. There you go. That's not what I mean by the 20%. No, 20% refers to the part of AI that can't personalize art. It cannot create the way a human being can create. Even a younger artist, like the artist I mentioned in my last video, who said, wouldn't it be cool if? That's a question that AI won't do. They're not sentient. They're not emotionally driven by their work. And that 20% refers to that signature, that personalized style that makes that art your own. That's what I meant by that. It didn't mean you're just doing the little touch-up. That's a touch-up artist. That sucks ass. Not only that, as you mentioned in my previous comment, most clients don't care about your, quote, voice. And that's fine. That's fine. It's their idea. But it's going to change the landscape, and maybe we'll have to rethink whether the new state of the industry still brings us fulfillment. I'll come home and still do art. No outside pressure. My relationship with my own art won't change. I think there are much bigger issues than that AI poses, just beyond beyond just ourselves and our philosophy. Yes, there's truth in that comment. There's a lot of truth in that comment. And I for one, I think that I want to close this video, close this thought. And again, I have many more thoughts. I'm still standing on the edge of this battlefield, assessing the opposing army. I'm still in observation mode. You can call it a fence, or you can call it a cliffside, or you can call it my golden mansion with my golden toilet. You call it whatever you want. This is how I see it. There's a lot of potential things happening. There's a lot of potential. There's a chance. There's a risk of. And we need to be alert and aware to these things. And when lawyers and programmers and artists chime in with an expertise, a knowledge, or research that we're not yet aware of, it is your responsibility, if you plan on having a successful career in any capacity, to keep yourself informed. This is why I produce these videos. This is why I want to collaborate with other people, because we are more than the sum of our own parts, right? I need to be able to consult with people who are smarter, more capable in certain domains to help to better round my own understanding of the subject. I am new to this just like you. I'm impacted by this just like you. But, my dear, until then, and while you wait, while we learn, draw. Draw like nobody's watching. Just draw. Keep drawing. Keep creating. Keep moving forward. Keep evolving. Because if you spend the next 5-10 years waiting for the ball to drop and you refuse to pick up your pencil until you find out, well, there's 10 years of practice you just flushed down the toilet. 10 years of potential you just threw down the toilet. 10 years of not finding that voice and making AI more and more of a threat to your existence artistically. Keep drawing. Keep being creative. Don't let unsettling news destroy your spirit. It's the human spirit, it's the artist's spirit that makes us so precious, isn't it? It's our artistic spirit that makes us unique, that makes us identifiable, that makes us lovable or hateable, depending on our personal preference, whatever role we choose to play in this big game. And no matter where you are in this, no matter how you're impacted or where your career is, whether you're a seasoned pro who's 65 years old and you're Jim Davis or Chuck Jones and you've got a legacy of merch behind you and you're filthy rich and you're living off of the success of comic books that you've been building and drawing since the last 50, 60 years, and you're a household name, or you're a young artist who's barely into the game and hasn't really established their voice and is just starting to learn the basic fundamentals. Don't think for 2 seconds that your position and your impact is any less than the other. Everybody stands to lose from this, either the launch of a career or the destruction of a lifelong career. This impacts all of us. So be smart. Have an open mind. In my opinion, you're always better off assuming the best and not the worst, but being prepared for the worst. Listen to people who know what they're talking about. Don't get caught up in exhausting, endless battle modes that are just turning you into a bullet sponge and a meat shield. Don't do that to yourself. You're going to burn yourself out. And you know who I can tell who's already starting to get burned out? It's all those people in the comments who 2 weeks ago were telling me that I was a loser and I didn't know what I was talking about. And then in the following video, a week later, saying, "Oh my God, you're still talking about this? I'm so tired of this shit." Look at that. You spent so much of your energy and your time bitching and complaining that you burnt yourself out. Now you're just looking for a distraction. So if you want to be in the long game and if you want to protect your career, keep drawing, keep being creative, keep being informed, and spend your energy wisely. Capiche? With that said, I love you all with all my heart, and happy painting. Take care.